comments, statements? We have a learning meeting once a month, and we have a learning board meeting once a month as well. And I didn't state this in the beginning, but we no longer have our principals come alone. They have one teacher leader that attends every one of those meetings with them, because if we say the work is best done as a team, who is Rick's team? We don't want him going back to the building with just his interpretation of what happened at that meeting that day. So there's a principal and a team leader that comes, and then they go back to their building and work with the team leaders so that we can get the work accomplished with the teams. And we just provide subs for those teachers. It's a really cost-effective way to do it. There's a lot of smart people, and to get those teachers at the table with us has really enhanced our discussions.
There's just been a research study that came out of UCLA, Ron Gallimore study, that for 2 years they trained the principals in the process, and they had no gains, nothing. It wasn't until the training included teacher leaders that they actually began to do it, because there was a much greater accountability on the principal to train a principal in isolation. Then they go back in the building, and whether they do it or they not, if they don't do it, there was really no monitoring. But once the team leaders were being trained with the principals, there was this, so when are we going to do this? And, you know, what's the next step, principal? And so that's a great idea, I think, that you're using, saying we want principals to bring key leaders along.
I want to share one more piece on that graphic. So take a look at the blue piece there. As teams, they're you know, giving their common assessments, they're analyzing their assessment data, and then that flows back the other direction. So what happens is they start with the team, and then they're sharing that, maybe it's math data that they're looking at that month, in their staff meeting to see, okay, here was the goal for kindergarten. How did our kindergarten kids do? What were the essential outcomes that they were working on? First grade, second grade. The entire school is taking collective responsibility for those kids. That data then comes to the district office. And oftentimes, it's not the principal presenting it. You saw when Mike was doing his reflection piece, he called on Leanne, okay, from the English department. Cody was also in that room from math as we began to talk about that data. If it's writing, maybe it's all third grade teams or all fourth grade teams are coming to that administrative meeting as we begin sharing out on how our kids are doing. Paul?
Just another observation. I really like how, with the district level commitment, the modeling of the behavior with the principals, pulling them together, just as you would expect them to make sure they allocate time for their teacher teams, but to model the behaviors of what would be expected of the teacher teams, and right on down the team leaders to the teams. It's very, to me, it's a very logical sequence of events.
Thank you.
Not that it's done frequently.
Right.
Just logically.
Yes. Jenny?
I'm curious what difference you've seen in the practice of your district level leadership team since you've started to do this, just in their professional practice.
Well, I think that when we decided we were going to ensure learning for kids was the big, you know, when you began to realize that we're going to live our mission statement, practices included that we had lots of folks in charge of different things. And I could just talk about budgeting for one thing, pockets of money. So you have somebody overseeing Title I, you have special ed. We had to bring all those folks together as a learning committee, and as we laid out the work, you know, through the district learning improvement plan that flows down to the schools, we needed everyone's dollars to be able to make that happen. What could Hugh do in special ed because he had X, Y, and Z, and what could so-and-so do in Title I? And so we've really put it's a more collective effort on the work that we're all doing. So it's been great. We're one of the couple of districts in the state have a RTI grant, and we're one of those, and it's really helped us solidify that that's not a separate initiative. That goes under question number 3. We have some kids that aren't learning, and that has been a huge piece. Versus what I see districts do is someone goes off to an RTI conference and they come back in and say, now we're doing RTI. And you'll say, well, have you established your essential outcomes? Well, no, not really. You know, what sort of common assessment plan do you have? Well, my question then is what are you doing RTI on if you don't know what's absolutely essential? Those are the kids that you really, what they're working on are the essentials. So it's helped us all. Just everything that we do fits under those 4 critical questions, or guess what? Probably won't be doing it,
And
right?
those 4 critical questions are front and center in your district leadership team?
Yes, yes.
I think somebody at the table made the point that in most of the places that we're working, we're seeing a lot of emphasis on the blue, that, you know, people are saying, teams, you need to do this, teams, you need to do that, teams, you need to do this, but not as much on the principal leading the team in the process, and very rarely are districts training principals to lead the process. So I think this graphic makes a really good point. And I know Rich's district, one of the keys to Sanger becoming one of the great success stories in America is that the district understood they needed to train principals to lead the process. And so if you've read Raising the Bar, we could devote a whole chapter to the Sanger Summit. You know, the Sanger Central Office staff. Well, could you just kind of, in a couple minutes?
Basically, we realized the same thing that Janel, you just talked about, is that principal competency had the biggest control over moving schools forward. And we quickly learned that our competency level, we had a summit where we had the principal stand up and tell where their school was, where it is, and where they're going. And we were absolutely shocked because they had no idea. And each principal did this in a format where they were in front of an audience and a group that was questioning them at that time. That was 5 years ago. Now, at those summits, we can barely keep up because they're progressing so quickly. The other thing we learned is that when we trained a principal, he had to be sitting there with his leadership team, not just him. And we expect the principal to have, I have physically taken a laptop and deposited in a trash can because a principal's not going to touch that during that time because it's that critical that he be engaged with his team.
I'd like to have been in that meeting, yes.
In the green section, we also had to realize just because you were a team leader, you know, that they had the leadership skills to be able to do that. And so we have a number of team leader trainings throughout the years. The principals and the team leaders help us with that. And a lot of them are scenario based, things that they're facing back in the building, and how can we help them as they're trying to get their teams to move forward. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Great job.